Sleeping Beauty in the Disney film.
Yeah.
The king and queen. They're older. They've been trying to have a child. They finally have one, Aurora. Like, she's everything to them. They have a christening party for her. They don't invite the evil queen. And you think, well, of course they don't. Who invites the evil queen to the birthday party? It's like, you got to invite the evil queen to your kid's life, because otherwise they don't know that life is hard, and they don't know that they can prevail through that. And so what happens to Sleeping Beauty is the first time she's disappointed, as soon as she grows up, as soon as she hits 16, pricks her finger, a little bit of blood, she wants to be unconscious because she can't tolerate it. She's been so protected, she can't tolerate life. It's like, so you want to make sure that your kids are exposed to experiences that push them and stretch them as much as you possibly can. I guess that's part of the competence thing we were talking about too. Some of those Disney movies, man, they really nailed it. Like, I would say Beauty and the Beast, they nailed that. Like, they got the archetypal structure dead on. Like, that's the fundamental hero myth for women, is like, find a monster who wants to be a good man and help him be a good man. Don't find the, you know, half-developed, harmless thing. Find the guy that's, he's a monster.
He's been through it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and form a relationship with him. Okay, so fine, and that's a scary thing to do, right? And a woman who hasn't had good experiences with men will prefer a man who's, well, the psychoanalytic idea would be castrated, essentially, but rendered harmless.
Right.
Well, he won't hurt me, he's harmless. It's like, harmless is not virtuous. Harmless is dangerous, because harmless people have no force in the world, and so they can't move forward properly, and so then they get resentful and bitter and passive aggressive, and they take things out on their subordinates. And you know, a woman who's afraid of men can't distinguish competence from tyranny, and so she sees a competent man, she thinks he's a tyrant. She hasn't separated those two things out, you know. So it's like the guy who marries someone and then turns her into his mother, you know, because he can't tolerate the idea that his wife could also be sexual, you know, so he desexualizes her over time and then wonders why he's unhappy sexually when he's 40,
right?
You know, because he can't bridge the gap between mother and mistress, something like that. So yeah, the Disney movies, Beauty and the Beast, nailed it. Little Mermaid, dead on. Sleeping Beauty, dead on. The Lion King, I've done a lot of analysis of. It's a little more on the edge because some of the archetypal themes in it were put in consciously, and so they're more propagandistic in some sense. Well, and that just doesn't work over time. I mean, story's everything, and a story is something that you can't contrive it. It has to manifest itself in some sense. You know, the story has an internal logic and its own arc, and if you're aiming it at a moral statement, then it's not art, it's propaganda, and it'll fall flat. Frozen was a good example. That was propagandistic right from the end to the beginning, as far as I was concerned. And it was the right propaganda for the time, but
I didn't see it. I know my niece loves it, but I didn't see it.
No one will watch it in 20 years, I don't think. Whereas they'll be watching, well, The Little Mermaid, for example, or Beauty and the Beast forever, because they're perfect. Pinocchio's pretty much perfect. It gets a little moralistic from time to time. You know, it was done in the 30s. It's like, give them a break. The artist shouldn't be able exactly to say what he or she is doing. If you can say what you're doing, you're not producing art. Art is, well, you could say art bears the same relationship to culture that the dream does to mental stability. You know, your dream doesn't say what it's about. It just is. You can interpret it, and that's helpful sometimes, just like movie criticism is helpful. But the dream is something that extends you beyond where you already are. That's why it isn't verbal thought. It's something else. It's like a pseudopod that's going out into the unknown. That's what art is. And the artist who subsumes the artistic vision to the ideological framework is putting the cart before the horse. It's actually a sin, I would say. It's like the ultimate in creative sins to do that, because you're harnessing the greater to the lesser. It's like, yeah, you understand things, and you could tell a story about what you understand. It's like, no, you tell a story about what you don't understand, and then you pull everyone into the story. The story's an exploration in that way.